Would any passengers meeting the QNAV representative please contact airport information? Any passengers meeting the QNAV representative to airport information on the ground floor?
Oh, we do these on board. Oh, so we do have a small
Can I have attention please, all passenger Britain, please return to the check-in staff. That's passenger Britain, thank you.
Recording, yeah?
Recording, yeah. I've got the gear on though.
Got the glass again. Finish off the last part of the...
Would you like to go? Why not go and get another glass?
Yeah, why not?
Get a full glass. Then. Go get a, I'll follow you.
Why not?
Go get a full glass. Make the most of it. He's just told us this is the most wonderful birthday present from his girlfriend.
Is it?
Oh, very, very
lovely. What a surprise. Hey.
Refill.
Right, what are you going to tell her then?
I want to tell her,
Yeah?
she's a really lovely, gorgeous girl, and best present I've ever had.
I bet you are.
Cheers.
Can't be bad.
Lowered. Those of you at the back, conversely, at the moment will be feeling the airplane wobbling around a little bit, which is the Captain Norman. He's wiggling the flying controls. Again, those of you near the windows at the back will be able to see the control surfaces on the back of the wing called the elevons, which is a mixture of elevators and ailerons, so reasonably enough they're called elevons, wiggling around as he checks the various different systems to operate the flying controls. You may be interested to know, in fact, this was the very first civil fly-by-wire airliner. It's over 20 years old now, and a lot of song and dance was made about the Airbus A320 quite recently, about 2 or 3 years ago, when it was introduced as being the first fly-by-wire airliner, but in fact Concorde has been fly-by-wire ever since it was designed. And in case you don't know what fly-by-wire means, that's all the electrical, all the flying controls are controlled by an electrical signalling, which enables us to basically control the aircraft in a much more sophisticated way than would be possible with ordinary controls. And since Concorde does so much more than all other civil airliners, this is a very necessary feature. I'll shut up now for a little while so that the cabin crew can do their emergency briefing, and then I'll be speaking to you again a little bit later before we take off.
Cabin crew, may have doors to automatic, please, and stand by for demonstration, please.
Emergency exits are on both sides of the aircraft. They are clearly marked and are being pointed out to you now. There are 2 doors at the rear, 2 in the centre, and 2 at the front of the aircraft. Additional lighting will be provided at floor level to help you find your way to the exits should the need arise. In the event of having to use an escape slide, leave all hand baggage behind, and ladies, remove high heel shoes. You please now ensure that your table is folded away, your seat back is upright with the armrest down and your seatbelt fastened. The seatbelt is fastened and adjusted like this, and unfastened like this. Whenever the fasten seatbelt signs are on, you must return to your seat and fasten your belt securely. If for any reason the air supply fails, oxygen will be provided. Masks like this will appear automatically. When you see the masks, remain seated and quickly cover your mouth and nose, like this, and breathe normally. Putting the mask to your face opens the oxygen supply. Do not smoke when oxygen is in use. Your life jacket is stowed under your seat. When directed to do so by the crew, remove the life jacket from its container and put it over your head. To inflate, pull the red toggle as shown. If necessary, the air can be topped up by using this mouthpiece. And there is a whistle here.
And it looks as though there's about 4 or 5 aircraft up ahead of us, so we'll probably have to wait a little while here before we can go. The pilots here are just discussing the departure. Concorde is rather unusual compared with other civil airliners. Well, unusual in many ways really, but one of the unusual features that we're about to see is the takeoff. Most other civil airliners, in fact as far as I know all other civil airliners, if they are not at their maximum weight on a very hot day, use less than the full power of the engines, and this is called reduced thrust, and basically it's to save the life of the engines and reduce maintenance costs and so on. But Concorde is different from other airliners in that if we fly too slowly, it's very uneconomic way of operating the aircraft, and so we always use full power, and also reheats or afterburners as they're called, which basically is injecting neat fuel into a rather simple system in the back of the jet exhaust, which is then ignited and provides about 20% additional thrust for a very light weight of extra equipment on the engine. But the downside is it increases the fuel consumption by about 50 or 60%. So it's something that we only use now and again, just for takeoff and for the transonic acceleration. But because it gives us all this extra thrust, the takeoff is somewhat quicker than most other aircraft, and the climb-out angle is also quite steep. Today we'll be shutting down the reheat and reducing power around about 1 minute and 10 seconds after the start of the takeoff roll. This is in order to be as kind a neighbour as we can to the local communities. Concorde is rather noisy, and because of this we cut back quite sharply on power once we're up at a safe height. And you'll notice this particularly at the back of the aircraft near the engines. There's a relatively dramatic reduction in the noise. This is all quite normal for Concorde operations. Today the aircraft is lighter than it would be on a regular New York flight. In fact, all the experiences that you're going to get are amplified really over the regular New York passenger. The aircraft normally weighs around about 185 tons when it takes off for New York, and today in fact it's only going to weigh around about 130 tons. So with less inertia, it'll accelerate more quickly and climb out much more quickly. So although it's not quite obviously a fairground ride, it's still reasonably dramatic compared with regular civil airliners, and also compared with Concorde in its normal day-to-day operation to New York. To other aircraft, because it goes further in a shorter time, but also the utilisation of the aircraft is relatively low, and the main work that the aircraft do, the British Airways have 7 altogether and Air France have 7, is just to New York, and it's a twice-a-day service to New York and 3 times a week to Washington, combined with some charter flights like these, and which are basically going around the Bay of Biscay, and other charter flights to various other places. One of the more famous ones probably being the Christmas flights to see Santa Claus in Lapland. We're just waiting to line up at the moment. There's a Danair 737 out on the right hand side of us that hopefully is going to go any moment, and then it looks as though we're going to be next.
Oh, I missed the faster than normal, isn't it? Faster than normal, it's so low now, isn't it?
And now we're just raising the nose and the visor.
Oh, what acceleration. It's beautiful, absolutely beautiful. Oh, God.
The length of time that it took us to reach 5,000 feet and 300 miles an hour. Regular aircraft starting off at the same point would probably be over the reservoirs at Staines, still doing 200.
It's 0.65 Mach, 9,500.
Already? Already?
0.67.
Really?
The way that the aircraft is flown is most efficient when it flies as fast as possible, and we now have accelerated to the maximum speed of the aircraft at this particular height, which is around about 420 miles an hour. And
That's nothing, yeah. That's nothing.
Up here in front of me we have only the information in knots, which is slightly less than regular miles an hour. So at the moment we're doing about 375 knots.
Oh, it's magic. Absolutely magic. I love it, I love it. Absolutely. Let's get a shot at the back. Beautiful. Very good out there. A bit cloudy at the moment. I'm waiting to get higher. Love the weather. Acceleration, I can't get over there. Oh.
I'm trying to kicking you at the same time.
I'm trying to hold the camera for the camera's God. Wind 73. Wait till we reach the threshold of space. When you look up, it's all dark. You see the stars. It's going to be black. See the curvature of the earth and everything. Oh, I can't wait for that. I better save the batteries actually.
Our routing today is basically straight out towards the West Country. We pass over the Bristol area, where the aircraft was actually built at Hilton, and we'll be flying initially subsonically. Obviously, if we fly supersonically over land, we will be throwing down a supersonic boom behind us and annoying the inhabitants of the West Country. So